Welcome to this complete beginner's guide for the new DJI Mini 4 Pro. I'm so happy to have you here because in this video I'm going to take you from a beginner up until a level where you're going to be confident to fly in all situations with your new drone, so you don't need to wonder what to do and how things works. We're going to start with going through everything on the drone itself. After that we're going to go through the remote. Then we're going to go through the DJI Fly App inside the remote so you know how to use that whenever you're flying. Then we're going to go through the setup process so you can get up and flying as quick and as efficient as possible without doing any stupid mistakes that are easy to avoid. So the remote I have here, this is the DJI RC-N2 remote. The DJI Mini 4 Pro can also be purchased with a DJI RC-N2 remote. The difference is that remote, you have to attach your phone to it. I'm pretty sure you will never regret to getting this remote instead of the one where you have to attach your phone. Now we're going to put down remote for a moment and we're going to go through everything there is to know on the DJI Mini 4 Pro. This is what the drone is going to look like whenever you get it in the package. At the front here we have a gimbal cover and a sensor cover, and that is something we have to remove first. At the back here, this is a propeller holder, and that one is something we have to remove as well, so the propellers are coming loose so we can actually use the drone. This one and this one, those are things you're supposed to save and use and put back on the drone every single time you're done flying. So first let's lift off this cover, and you do that by just pulling up that little thing, and then you can just lift up this protector, and that is how easy you remove it. To put it back on, you just make sure the gimbal is straight forward like that. You put the cover on like that, and then just snap it at the bottom, and that's how easy you put it back. But now we're going to take it off. So here around the lens on the camera, here is going to be a lot of yellow small plastic pieces. Those are supposed to be removed and thrown away. You're not going to use them anymore. And then after that, you're going to have a foam cover that is here behind the gimbal. That one is supposed to be pulled out also, and that's also going to be thrown away, and you're not going to use that one. And on the little note you have at the back here where the battery is, that's only going to tell you that you need to charge the drone first, because most of the times you won't have any charge in the battery whenever you get a new drone. After we have removed everything from the gimbal and camera at the front, then we're going to remove this propeller holder that we have here at the back. That one is attached here on the right hand side, so you're going to just pull it up like that, and then it just folds around and you can just pull it off. What we now can do, that is to unfold the propellers. And the propellers can be unfolded in any way you want. You can start with those ones, or you can start with the ones that goes forward. It doesn't matter, they don't lock each other. So this is what a DJI Mini 4 Pro drone looks like whenever it's ready to fly. So now we're going to go through all the pieces and things on the drone so you know what that is. Here we have the propellers. The propellers are loose like this, so never over tighten them, because then you're going to destroy the screws. So they're going to be like this. So when you screw on new propellers, then you're just going to screw them until it just stops, and then it's done. I actually have a dedicated video about how to replace the propellers, and I'm going to link that video and many other videos in the description box below so you can find them and watch them after this. So when we take a look at the front here, these two ones here, together with the two in the back, those ones are omnidirectional vision sensors. So what they do, they are keeping track of everything that is around you, and they are working together with the drone so it doesn't fly into things. It detects obstacles everywhere so you can fly safely without flying into obstacles. But just be aware that things can fail sometimes. Just keep the head with you whenever you're flying, so don't rely 100%, just rely 99.9% on the vision sensors and the obstacle avoidance system. Then at the bottom here, these two, those are downward facing vision sensors. What they do, they are keeping track of the ground, and whenever you're going to land, those ones are going to assess the ground underneath the drone and make sure that it looks like it's safe for landing, and if it doesn't, the drone will just hover 0.8 meters above the ground until you as the pilot decide to manually land the drone. Then we have these two ones. Those ones are 3D infrared sensors, and they are also, together with the vision sensors, keeping track of the ground underneath the drone. And this little thing, that is an auxiliary light, so that one is like a flashlight shining downwards towards the ground whenever it's dark outside, so you a lot easier can land safely, because when it's dark it can be hard to see what's on the ground. It can also be used as a flashlight if you're looking for something, or maybe someone, if you are running a search and rescue mission, then you can lit up the ground below the drone so you can find whatever you're looking for a little bit easier. And this thing, that is the camera of the drone. That is the only camera we have that can capture images and videos, and that one has a 48 megapixel sensor, and it can record videos up to 4K. And that camera is attached into this gimbal that is here, that is making the shot steady and sturdy whenever you're flying. So even if the drone is angled like this, the gimbal is going to make sure that the camera is steady and you get a perfect shot when you're flying. If we flip the drone around towards the back here we have vents that are just cooling down the drone. So if you have your drone sitting still on the ground and it's turned on, then it's very likely that the drone will overheat after a while, because it needs the flow of the air when it's flying to cool itself down. Here at the back we have the only button we have on the drone. If you click that one once, then we're going to see how much battery, how much charge we have in the battery. So now when it's 4 LEDs lit up, that means that the battery is fully charged. And here we have a USB-C port that you're going to use whenever you're going to charge the drone if you don't have the FlyMore kit or the FlyMore bundle, because if you have that, you also get a charging hub that you can use. And here to the right, that is the micro SD card slot, and that's where you put in your micro SD card so you can store your videos and pictures on board that SD card. And then here at the back, this is the battery, and on the battery it says ultralight 249 grams. So when I'm using this battery that it comes with, then the drone weighs under 249 grams, and in many countries and regions that means special things, that it's excluded from maybe being registered, or you maybe sometimes don't need a drone license, etc. But you really need to make sure you're following the local regulations before you use the drones, so you know what's required. For example, in Europe it doesn't matter that it's under 250 grams because it has a camera, so we still need to have a drone license, for example. And then to remove the battery, you have a button there and a button there, and you just hold like this, pull it backwards, and that's how easy you detach and unmount the battery. And then to plug it back in, you just push it in, and that is how easy you replace and charge the battery if you're going to use that outside the drone. So that is everything there is to know about the DJI Mini 4 Pro itself. Now it's time to take a look at the DJI RC-2 remote. So this is the DJI RC-2 remote. This is a fantastic remote that has lots of upgrades compared to the previous one that was shipped together with the DJI Mini 3 Pro. First of all, we have a big screen here. That one has 700 nits, and that maybe doesn't tell you so much, but that means that it's bright enough to be used outside in the daylight without having any problems to see what's actually on the screen. And here we also have 2 joysticks. We have one to the left and one to the right. They don't have any joysticks mounted on them because they are stored here at the back, so you just take them out like that, and then you just screw them on at the front. And I can really recommend to have some spare ones of these ones at home, because I have lost some of them, because sometimes you just take them off here and then you just drop them and you can't find them. That's why I really recommend you to maybe have one pair of those at home, because it's so boring to steer the control without those joysticks. This button is the home button and the pause button, and the return to home button, that one is used, for example, if you've flown away and you want the drone to come back and land wherever you took off, you just press and hold that button and the drone is going to come back. You can update that home point if you want to, if you don't want the drone to come back to where you took off, and I actually have a dedicated video about that also in the description box below. The pause button, that's the same button. That one is used if you are running any automated missions, for example quick shot, master shot, waypoints or something like that, and you just want the drone to pause, just press that one quickly and the drone is going to stop in the air and hover wherever it is. This toggle switch, that one can be switched from the left to the right. N stands for normal flight mode, C stands for cinematic, that goes a lot slower, S stands for sport, and that makes the drone fly really fast. But when you're in sport mode, the obstacle avoidance sensors are turned off, so the drone itself won't stop if you fly close to things, to obstacles, then it will just continue and crash. So just make sure that you know what you're doing when you put that one into sport mode. And then here we have the on-off button. If we press that once, we're going to see how much battery we have on the remote. And if we press it once and then again, I'm going to show that later, then we turn on the drone. But before we do that, let's go through what else we have here. So here, that button, that is a shutter button for the camera. So you can press that one halfway, then you focus the camera, and then you press it all the way, and then you take a picture. This one is the record button for the video, so just press it. The recording of video on the drone is going to start. Press it again, and you're going to stop the video recording. And here between these two ones, here we have these unfoldable antennas. And these antennas are going to be aimed towards the drone. So if the drone is over here, we're going to have them aimed towards the drone like that. If we have the drone just above us, then we're going to angle them like this, so the drone is angled towards that way of the remotes. So just keep that in mind, that you're going to have these ones angled towards the drone. You're not going to point these tip towards the drone. You're going to have a side of the antennas towards the drone. And then when you're going to pack the drone together, you just do it like this. And now it's folded again. And here, these ones, those ones are toggle switches that can be moved back and forth to the left and right. This one controls the gimbal up and down, so the camera up and down if you're going to look forward, and then if you're going to look down, you take that toggle switch and move it, then the camera is going to look downwards. And this one, that is controlling the zoom of the camera, because you have up to 4 times digital zoom on the camera of the DJI Mini 4 Pro. Then we have here C1 and C2 button, that's custom 1 and custom 2. Those ones can be programmed to more or less whatever you want to. So you can just have a speed button, a shortcut to that feature. So you just press it, and then the drone is going to do whatever you programmed that button to do. And here at the bottom, here we have a micro SD card slot again, if you need to have more storage on the remote. The storage on the remote is used, for example, for screen recordings, or you would like to save the cached images that are transferred from the drone to remote, then you can insert a SD card there. But that is not really necessary on these RC2 the same way as it was on its predecessors, because it actually has a 32 GB internal memory, so you can fit lots of things on this remote before it's full. And then to the right of it there, we have a USB-C port again for charging the remote and for downloading data that you have on it. So that's everything there is to know about the DJI RC remote. Now it's time to start up this remote and take a look at the DJI Fly App. The DJI Fly App is the app you're using on this remote every time you're flying. On this remote, you cannot install third-party apps like you can do from an app store, so that is the only app you have here. To access that one, to start that up, the only thing you do is that you press this once, and then press and hold, and it's going to sound like that. And now the DJI RC is going to start up, and then it's going to also start up the DJI Fly App. And the first things that are going to happen here when you start up this remote the very first time is that you're going to log into your DJI account. If you don't have one, you have to create one. Then after that, you're going to link the remote to the drone. You just need to follow the instructions that comes on the screen. And then after that, you're going to be asked if you would like to buy the DJI Care. And the DJI Care is something that I really recommend you get, because that is an insurance from DJI. So if you crash the drone, you just need to send it in. They're going to repair it or replace it, whatever is best, and then you're going to get it back, and you can get, I think it's up to 2 replacements during the course of 2 years. And that just really gives a peace of mind, because if you crash a drone like this, they cost you about $1,000. It's not fun at all. So get that insurance. So now when we have started up the drone and we have done those initial steps, then we're going to see this. This is the home screen of the DJI Fly App. The first thing I always do whenever I get a new drone, that is to make sure we're up to date. So we would like to check if the firmware is up to date or if there is a new version. First of all, we need to be connected to Wi-Fi, and that's what you did whenever you started up the remote the very first time. So you should be connected to Wi-Fi right now. Then we're going to press the profile picture that we have here. Then it's going to take you into your profile. Then we can just scroll down, tap settings, And then after we have tapped settings, we have check for firmware updates and check for fly safe database updates. So before we do anything else, make sure your firmware is up to date. And then after that, we're going to continue. Let's start from the beginning of the screen. And here at the top here it says warning zone, because it recognizes that we are in a geographic zone where I'm maybe not allowed to fly or I am allowed to fly. So you need to tap that one to see what it says. I can't do that here because I don't have an internet connection. What I can do is that I can swipe down twice. Here I have things like my Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, screen recording, screenshot, and volume and screen brightness. So here I can just press the Wi-Fi. I can press to turn it off, I can press the Wi-Fi again to turn it on, I can press and hold to get into the Wi-Fi setting, and what I usually do is that I connect it to my hotspot on my phone when I'm out flying. So now we are connected to my hotspot, and then I can tap this warning zone to see what it means and why I get that warning, and then I have to confirm if I'm still allowed to fly or if I have to move to another location where I'm actually allowed to fly. And then if you tap the fly spots up here, then you're also going to bring up the map, and you can make sure that you're actually in an area where you're allowed to fly. Make sure that you're actually allowed to fly there, because I've noticed sometimes that the map inside the DJI remotes are not up to date with the actual regulations where you are. So cross-check with official flight maps first, so you know that you're actually allowed to fly where you are before you just trust the one you have here in the remote. And when we are on this, just make sure that you're not doing anything stupid when you're out flying, because it's stupid pilots that creates harder regulations for the drones. I've seen things where drone pilots are flying over factories and really annoying people, and then the police are coming and they are reporting things. And then we're going to get harder regulations for the drone. I mean, we don't have the regulations that we have today if people didn't behave stupid and flew over airports and places where they're not allowed to. So just because you're allowed to fly somewhere, please don't do it. Use common sense so we don't annoy people, so we don't get reports, so we don't need to have even harder regulations for the drone, because that's not good for anyone. And then at the bottom here we have album. That's where you can preview and look at everything you have captured, your photos and your videos, etc. And then you have Sky Pixels. That's kind of a social media place where you can share your pictures or videos. I've never used it, but that's what you can do. And then we have my profile again, and this is one thing that I usually do here is that I go to my settings, and then I have to go to my sync flight data and turn that on. So it automatically synchronizes my flight records to the servers, so I can go in afterwards and take a look what I did, where I flew, etc., etc. If you don't want to share that data, turn it off. And here we can also download offline maps, for example, and that is really handy if you're out flying, you don't have any connection on your phone. So that's why it's good to go in here, just download the area where you're supposed to fly, and you're going to be safe. And then here we also have Find My Drone. That is a really handy feature. If the drone for some weird reason should crash, or you just land somewhere where you don't know where it is, then you can use this one. It's almost like Find My on your iPhone. So you can find where the drone is, and you can even make sound on the drone, so you can actually find it afterwards whenever you're walking around and trying to find it. We have Academy at the top right here, and that's where you can have access to guides and manuals, or you can just watch this video to the end, because then you're gonna know everything there is to know as well. And when you're on it, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if you would like to have more videos about the DJI Mini 4 Pro and more drone and other things that content creator uses, because I promise here is so much more to learn. And if you get really good value of this video, consider super thanks, because that's a way for me to get paid for the job I do. So now we are done with the basics of the DJI Flight app. The next part of the DJI Flight app, that is when you have started up the drone, so you can go through the actual interface inside the flight part of the DJI Fly app. So now it's time to start up the drone. Now it's time to take a look at the part of the DJI Flight app that you're using whenever you're going to fly the drone. So to be able to do that, we need to turn on the drone. And before I turn on the drone, I always try to find a place where I actually can take off. So here looks good. Here I can take off. So I'm going to put the drone on the ground here. And here we can see that all the propellers are going free. I always check like this, so I know that they're not touching the ground anywhere. So now I know that I have a good position for the drone to take off. I can see that it can even go further back here. It will still not touch the rocks that we have here from the mountain. So this is a good place to take off. Then after that, we're going to turn on the drone. And to turn on the drone, we're going to tap this one once and then hold. And now the drone is going to do some tests. It's going to align the gimbal. So now we are connected between the drone and the remote. Now you could just see that it said home point updated, and that is exactly why I would like to place my drone where I would like to take off before I start it up. Because the home point, that is, as I mentioned before, that is the place on a map, geographic position that the drone is going to come back to and land if there is anything that is happening, or I initiate the return to home with this button. So if I would hold the drone in my hand, start it up there, then it's recording the home point in that position, then place a drone here, then when it comes back, I'm going to try to land wherever I had my hand, and that's maybe not suitable for landing at all. So put the drone where you want it to take off and land before you start it up. So this is the DJI Flight app. It can look overwhelming, but let's go through part by part so we know exactly what it's going to do. Let's start up from the left here. Here we have a little arrow to the left. If we press that one, we're going to go back to the previous screen. Here it says that I haven't purchased the DJI Care refresh yet, and you have 48 hours to buy the DJI Care refresh after you first pair the remote and the drone. I'm going to do that before those 48 hours has expired, because I always buy the DJI Care refresh to my drones, because if I don't have it, I'm probably going to crash. If I do have it, I probably don't crash. So now we're back here again. Now I can tap Go Fly, and we're going to go back to the screen where we were in the beginning. And then we have, it says N mode. If you press that one, nothing happens. That one is linked to this button. So if you put it on C, it's going to display C mode. If I put it on S, it's going to say S mode. In here it's also say sport mode, that the obstacle avoidance are disabled when you are in that mode. One thing to keep in mind though is that, say that you have flown yesterday or something, and you had this one in cinematic mode. Now you have turned off the drone and remote. Now you start it up and you still have it in cinematic. And then you take a look here, and then it says, oh, I'm in cinematic mode. No, it's not, because when the drone and remote first start up after it has been turned off, it's always reset to normal mode. So let me show you this. Now I'm in cinematic mode. Let me turn on the drone and remote. I'm first going to turn on the remote. Then I'm going to turn on the drone. Now we can see that even though I'm in cinematic mode here, I'm put back to normal mode on the screen. So this is what has confused me many times when I think that I'm in cinematic mode, but I'm actually normal mode because I have restarted the drone. It's good when you are in sport mode, because then you are in normal mode instead of sport mode when you start up the drone. But when you think you're in cinematic and you're actually in normal mode, then you can be a little bit surprised just when that happens. And then here at the top right here, it says the battery, it says 98. It's 98% left of the energy in the battery. And if I press that one, I get information. Now I don't get any specific information because the drone is still on the ground, but if it was in the air, it would say how much time I have until the return to home, RTH, is automatically initiated, and the drone is going to start coming back and land where it took off. I can also see how much time is left until forced landing, and the forced landing is that the drone automatically going to land whenever the energy in the battery is going below a certain point. Then the drone is just going to land, and you can't do so much about that, but you're going to be able to see how much time you have left until that procedure is going to be initiated. And then you have also the time at the bottom here until the battery is completely depleted. That is not completely depleted. You won't do any harm to the battery. It's like you're having a power bank at home. You won't unplug that power bank before it's empty because you're going to destroy the power bank. No, it doesn't work like that because it's an intelligent battery. It's just going to deplete itself until it's empty enough to not harm itself, and then you can recharge it again. But I wouldn't leave a fully uncharged battery for a longer period of time, so I would recharge it pretty soon. And then the time here, that is the same. If I press and click the time, it's going to happen the same thing as the battery. Here I have the connection I have between the remote and the drone. If I press that one, I can see that I have a strong RC signal. The one that is red here, that is the obstacle avoidance sensors, and that's going to just display if all the obstacle avoidance sensors, the vision sensors, are working. It will show red because the drone is not in the air. Whenever it's up into the air, you're going to see that it's all okay and working. Then to the right of that one, there we have the satellite connection, and here we can see that we have connection to 18 satellites, and we have a strong GPS signal. And then those three dots at the top here, When we press that one, we go into the settings. We're going to go through that after we have gone through what you see here on this monitor. Here, that rectangle that we have here, when you press that one, you can set what kind of shots you would like to capture with the camera. Here I have photos. Now here I have different alternative of photos. Single just takes one picture. AEB, that takes overexposed, underexposed, and middle exposed picture and put them together, merge them together into one HDR image. We have timed shots, so you can have a countdown timer, and we have burst. And I'm gonna go through many of these ones in separate videos later, and you're gonna find those ones in the description box below whenever they are posted. If we tap video instead, we can see that we have normal, we have night mode, and we have slow motion. And then if we click on master shots instead, we can see that the aircraft is not in flight, and we need to be in flight to be able to do master shots. But when you use master shots, what it's going to do is that you're going to fly up into the air, you're going to drag a rectangle around a object or person you would like to create a master shot around, and then the drone is going to fly around and do different kind of movements, and then cut that together into a presentation video that is showing the object or the person that you have focused on. And then at the bottom here we have quick shots. Quick shots is about the same as master shots, but instead of master shots doing everything automatically, in quick shots you can select what kind of shot you would like to capture, and I've actually dedicated a video about that as well that I have linked in the description box below. And then we have hyperlapse, and here we can have set hyperlapse, that is the opposite of slow motion. And then we have pano, that is panoramic, so you're going to stitch together lots of pictures so you can get that big field of view. And that's everything we have in this menu. Let's put that back to video again. And then we close it. We're not going to have slow motion. Let's take normal. And then we close it by tapping that again. The red button here, when we tap that one, we're going to start record the video. And that is the same as if I press that button. If I switch this one to photo instead, we're going to get a shutter button here, and that's going to be the same as if I tap that one. And then after you capture something, then you have this play button here. That one is going to show you the media that you have stored, so you can review that after you have captured it. When it comes to these buttons, the photo and video recording buttons, those ones are taking actions depending on what mode you are in on the drone already. So now we are in photo mode because we can see that here. If I now press this button halfway to focus, then all the way to take the picture, then we're going to take the picture directly. If I instead press the video button, then we are switching to video mode, but we are not starting the video recording because we are switched to the video mode. To start the video recording, we need to press that one again. Now the video recording started. So if we now would like to take a picture and we press the picture button, nothing happens because we are already recording a video. So then we have to stop the recording with that button or the button on the touchscreen. And now if we press the photo button, the remote is first going to switch to photo mode, and then next time we press it, then we're going to take a picture. And then at the bottom here it says auto. This is the automatic setting for the camera, and if you are in auto, you can set some things. If you set EV, that is the exposure value. So if you set that one lower, it's getting darker. If you set it higher, you're going to get a brighter image. And if we put that back to 0, and then the other button here, it says resolution and frames per second. Here I can select if I would like to capture in 4K or 1080. And whenever I set what kind of resolution I would like to have, then I can set how many frames per second I would like to have. I usually, because I'm in Europe, I usually record in 25 frames per second. If I would like to slow it down a little bit, I set it to 50 frames per second. It's a good thing to set it so it's equally dividable by whatever frame rate you would like to export in. So if you're going to export something in 30 FPS, well, then you can set 60 FPS and you can slow that one down by 50%. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to frames per second is that the higher frames per second you have, the darker the image will be. So if you're going to capture things in low light, don't just try to film things in slow motion if you don't need to, because everything is going to get darker. Then you should use the lowest alternative you have. So for me, I should film in 25 frames per second when it's dark outside. And then I have the storage. When you tap the storage, I can see that I have 2 GB available on the internal memory on the DJI Mini 4 Pro, and I can see I have no SD card connected. If I would have that here, it would show up here. And then if I press the auto, then I switch over to Pro mode of the camera instead. So now I have some more settings. Here I have, so I can set again the resolution in frames per second that we talked about earlier. Here I can manually set the white balance if I would like to do that. I just press auto, and then I can set whatever white balance I would like to have. So daylight is about 5600. Here I can set where the media should be stored, if it should be stored to the SD card or the internal memory. Here I can set what kind of color profile I would like to have, if it's normal, HLG, or D-Log-M. So if you use normal, you don't need to do anything with the footage whenever you're going to use it afterwards. If you use HLG, you don't need to do anything either. It's just high dynamic range of what you're capturing, so you're going to be able to preserve the highlights of the sky and the darker parts of the shot better, instead of, for example, the highlights, the sky is blown out and you can't retain any data there. D-Log-M, that is a log profile. That means that everything is desaturated, so everything looks very pale. That's just because you can capture more data in that, and then when you are in the editing process, then you apply a lookup table, and then you stretch out that image again, so you're getting all the colors and vibrance back. And when you do that, you're going to be able to capture more dynamic range. That means that the range between the darkest parts and the brightest parts of the image, so you can get an even better picture than you could with any of the other ones. And that one is really good to use if you would like to have a little bit more professional result and you need to match this footage with some other cameras. Then it's a really good thing to put that into D-Log-M and then apply a LUT in the editing software. Here I can set color display assist. If I turn that on, it's going to apply an internal LUT, a lookup table that corrects this log profile, so it looks perfect here on the screen, but the data that is actually saved is in that pale color profile. So that's why it can look weird when you take it out from the SD card, even though it looked good here. That's because you need to apply a LUT in your editing software. I actually have a video about how to apply LUTs as well. And then we also have, if we scroll down here, we can set whatever kind of coding format we would like to have. If we would like to save in H.264 or H.265, that's a compression level. H.265 compresses the data a lot more, so it's smaller file sizes, but it's harder for the computer to work with whenever you import it to the computer. So if you have an old computer, use H.264. If you have a new M2, M1 MacBook, something like that, then you can easily use H.265 to edit that instead. Then we have the media format. If we are normal, we can select that. In HLG, I can't select that either. And in D-Log, it's also fixed to MP4. And then if we tap at the bottom right here instead, then we can set the ISO. Instead of being auto, I can set that manual if I would like to have a higher ISO. And I can also set the shutter speed automatically here as well. That's all you have here. At the bottom left here we have data that is coming from the drone. We have the H for height, D for distance. So now we can see that we're 1.7 meters away from the home point. We are at the elevation of 0.0 meters above the home point. And above that, where it says 0.0 meters per second, that's my ascend or descend rate. The other 0.0 meters per second, that's the speed I'm flying in. Where we have the map, if I tap that one, we're getting the map. At the top left, I can change from having north up or direction up. The bottom right, then I can turn to this radar screen instead, so I can see where the drone is, where the remote is, and where I'm flying. And I can also see that I have north down. Tap the top left, I change from heading up to north up again. And this is depending on how I have the remote. So if I turn the remote, this is going to change. If I tap that one, we're going to have the location of the drone instead. So if I twist the drone around, it's going to change. And then at the bottom left, we just minimize that one again, and we can tap it, we get a new one. If we tap at the bottom right, we're going to get the map back again. And at the top right of the map, we have a minus sign. If we tap that one, we're going to zoom out, tap it back with a plus sign, and we're going to zoom in again. Tap in the middle of the map to get it on full screen. And here you have some more options. On the right hand side, you can filter to have an overlay to see all of these kind of flight zones. You can select to have the center where the drone is or where the remote is. And then you can also have north up or heading up. And then you have overlay if you would like to have satellite or mixed or standard map. And then you just tap in the middle of the camera view again and you are back to the screen we had before. And then to minimize it, we just take the icon at the bottom left and we're going to get back to this again. And then we have this little button where it says the arrow up. When we press that one, that is how we can take off and go flying with the drone. So we have different ways to take off from the ground. Either we can select this one, and then I can press here and hold all until this green one has turned all the way around the circle. Then the drone is going to take off and fly up to an altitude of 1.2 meters. I have different options to take off. I can also put down these two remotes like that and hold it there. Then the drone is also going to start, but then it's not going to take off. Then the propellers are just going to start and it's going to stay on the ground, and then I can take off from there. But before we do that, we're going to go through all the settings of the DJI Flight app so you get that correct. And then above that one, here we have waypoint button. So that's where we go in when we would like the drone to fly according to waypoints that we can set in before we start flying, or we can actually save the waypoints while we are flying as well, but that's for another video how exactly you do that. Now let's go into the settings of the DJI Fly app. Okay, so to go into the settings, we tap at the top right here where we have the three dots. And here the first screen we're going to have, that is a safety screen. First it says obstacle avoidance action. That is what the drone is going to do whenever it detects an obstacle. All since the DJI Mini 3 Pro, I prefer to have it to bypass, so the drone itself is going to find its way past obstacles because the obstacle avoidance sensors were that good on the DJI Mini 3 Pro. On the DJI Mini 4 Pro it's even better, so I will probably almost always have on bypass instead. So when I have it on bypass, so if the drone should come here and fly, it's probably going to take to that side or maybe fly over instead. If I have it on brake instead, then the drone is going to come like this and then it's going to stop and not do anything more. I like the bypass because the obstacle avoidance is that good on this drone. Okay, let me show you exactly what I mean with brake and bypass. First we're going to try to fly into this tree and we're going to have brake on, and then after that I'm going to switch to bypass. Let's double check the setting and it's on brake. And now if we fly forward, the drone flies, and there it stops. Let me show you from the side how far away from the obstacle we are. So this is how far away from the tree we are. It's almost 2 meters away from the tree. And now if I switch to bypass instead in the menu, and now we're going to do the same. So let's fly back a little bit, and then we fly forward with this one. I'm in normal mode, and the drone automatically turns around the obstacle to find the best way past the obstacle. And that's why the bypass is such a great feature. Then we have the bypassing option, and here we have normal or nifty. If we are using nifty, that means that it turns down the obstacle avoidance sensors a little bit, so it allows you to fly a little bit faster, a little bit closer to obstacles, but you're also gambling a little bit more, and there is a bigger risk that you actually fly into things. So only use nifty if you know what you're doing. When you start out, just keep that one in normal because that's a lot more safe. Here we have display radar map. The display radar map, that will display a kind of radar on the screen when we're flying, so we can see that we are close to things in front, to the right, to the left, so you can get that in real time. Let's take a look at that radar feature a little bit more, because here we can see that we have this radar pattern around here, and that's because here is the tree. If I'm walking here, you're going to see that it's getting red wherever I am around the drone. Look here. And if we now fly forward where the tree is, you can see how that red pattern is shifting depending on what kind of obstacles it's detecting around it. So that is how the radar feature is working. And here we also have the advanced return to home. When you have it set to optimal, the drone is going to decide how it's going to fly home. It's going to detect what route it's going to take that is the shortest one to the home point that is safe to take. So it's going to go up to the preset altitude, and then it's going to just try to go home. And then Also, when you get closer to the home, if it knows that there is no obstacle in its way, it's going to go down and forward at the same time. If you have set it to the preset instead, then it's just going to rise up to the preset altitude, and then after that it's going to start go home, and then when it's at that position where it's going to land, that's when it's first going to start descending towards the home point. So that's the difference between optimal and preset. The optimal, then the drone is going to do more on its own, and the preset is going to follow your recommendations, go up to that altitude, then go home, then descend. So on the DJI Mini 4 Pro, I'm actually going to use the optimal because I think that is going to be more efficient. Then we have the return to home altitude. The auto return to home altitude is very important to set because the optimal advanced return to home is only going to work whenever the lighting conditions are optimal and the drone senses that this is the best thing to do. If not, it's going to go back and fall back to the preset, where the drone is going to just ascend up to the preset, return to home altitude, then go home and then land. So we should always set this. And the return to home altitude should always be set so you know that you can fly above all the obstacles you have between the drone and the home point. So what I always do is that I take the drone, then I'm just going to fly straight up, then I'm going to turn the drone around 360 degrees, see wherever I have the highest obstacle, I fly towards that highest obstacle, fly up to see how high up that is, and then if that is, for example, 30 meters, I'm going to set the return to home to maybe 35 meters, so I know that we can go past that obstacle if I for some reason was behind that obstacle whenever I needed to return to home. And then we have update home point. That's where you can update the home point if you need to do that. I have a full video on that. Then we have the AR setting. The AR setting, when you have that turned on, you're going to see on the screen how the drone is going to fly whenever the return to home is initiated. And that is kind of a nice feature to look at. And here we have the flight protection. This is where we set the maximum altitude and maximum distance. The maximum altitude is the maximum altitude you will allow the drone to fly to, and then you can't fly higher, and the same with max distance. Here we have to manually calibrate the compass and IMU. You're going to be asked to calibrate that if the drone and remote detects that there is an issue. We have battery information, so we can see the information about the batteries. And one thing when we're talking about the batteries, you maybe think that the battery in the DJI Mini 4 Pro is identical to the DJI Mini 3 Pro, but they are actually not. The DJI Mini 4 Pro has a slightly higher capacity on their drone, so I wouldn't recommend to mix those batteries just because there are different specifications on them. And here we have the auxiliary LED. When that's set to auto, the LED that we have here, that one, that light that we have there, when we have that set to auto, the LED will automatically turn on whenever we are in flight and we are below 5 meters of elevation, and that's going to work together with the vision sensors to determine the landing position and such. If we have it turned on, it's always going to be turned on. If you put it to off, it's always going to turn off, all until you start up the drone the next time, because then it's going to be reset to auto again. Here we can also unlock geo zones if you are in an area where you need to have special permissions to be able to fly. We have the Find My Drone again, and we have advanced safety settings. This is important to set correctly. Don't miss this one. Here we have what's going to happen when the signal is lost. If you fly somewhere and you have interruptions, you have some interference between the remote and the drone, or you just for some weird reason fly too far away so you lose the connection, then you're here going to set whatever going to happen with the drone. I always almost have set to return to home. That means that if the signal is lost, the drone is automatically going to come back and land on the spot. You can look at my dedicated return to home video after this one so you can see how this works. If you set that one to descend, that one is super dangerous, because that means that anytime the connection is going to be lost between the remote and the drone is just going to descend and land wherever it is, and you can just figure out how bad that's going to be if it's in a place where it shouldn't land. Hover. That is something that I'm using if I'm, for example, on a boat, or I'm moving somewhere, I'm trail walking somewhere, I'm doing something where I'm not at my home point anymore, because if I have it on return to home, the drone is going to fly back and land wherever you started. And if I'm no longer there anymore, or if I'm on a boat, I'm definitely not there anymore. So I'm going to try to get myself closer to the drone instead, so I can regain the connection. And here we have emergency propeller stop. This is also important to know that if you do like this, you hold it down there for about 1 second, then the propellers are going to stop, emergency stop. And here you can set when that's going to happen, if it's going to be anytime or in emergency only. If you have it on any time and you do that when you're flying, the drone will fall down from the sky, I promise you. But if you have it in emergency only, that's only going to work if the drone itself at the same time detects that it's in an emergency situation for some reason, like it has crashed and the propeller won't turn or something like that. Then you can use that one, and it will only work when it's in a situation like that. Let's go back. Controls. This is where you set your units, metric, meters or kilometers or imperial. Object scanning, and now we can actually see that the drone went into eco mode. I was waiting for this one, because the eco mode is just that it's preserving battery, it's not going to heat up as much anymore, and now only the camera and the playback features are going to work. If you tap that one, here you get the information as well. The eco mode enabled, photo and video modes and playback are still available. Take off as soon as possible after disabling eco mode. And here you can tap to disable. And if we're going to go into the settings again, I need to disable the eco mode to be able to go into the settings again. Let's go, I was on controls, subject scanning. When you have that turned on, then the drone automatically is going to detect things that it can track. Focus track setting. This is how you set how the drone is going to track persons and vehicles whenever you track something. Gain and expo tuning. This is how you set how the drone is going to behave whenever you are in cine, normal and sport mode. One thing that I would like to change here, even if it's a little bit more advanced setting, is to go to cine and take max horizontal speed and take that one down to 1 meters per second, because that means that if I now set it to cinematic and you start flying, the drone is going to go really slow. I don't want to drive fast when I'm in cinematic mode. And I'm also going to put down the max descent speed to the same as the max descent speed as well, so I know the drone is really slow whenever I'm in cinematic mode. The gimbal mode, follow mode, that is as we are used to with these kind of drones. The camera is steady. No matter if the drone is like this, the camera is going to be steady. Look here, for example, if I have it like this and I twist the drone like this, the camera is still going to be steady. If I change this one to FPV mode instead, then the camera is going to follow the movements of the drone instead. It's not an FPV drone, but you get a little bit more of that feeling when you're flying. Gimbal calibration, that is also something that the drone will tell you if you need to do, but you can do it here if you want to. Stick mode, I recommend to have that one in mode 2. That means that forward with this one will ascend the drone, down will descend. You're going to turn left, turn right, and this stick, put that one up. The drone is going to go forward, down, backwards, left. The drone is going to move left and take that one to the right, and the drone is going to move to the right. So have that one in mode 2. That's going to be so much easier to fly with. And then we have the button customization. This is where we can set what the C1 button and C2 button and also these toggle wheels are going to be used for. So here I can see, for example, the C1 button is going to be used for recenter, tilt, down gimbal. And if I would like to change that one, I can just tap and I can find the auxiliary light. I would like to have that one to be able to turn off or turned on instead. And here at the bottom you can set what's going to happen if you do 2 buttons in combination. And if you screw things up, you have the reset at the top right here. And here you have also RC calibration, flight tutorial. I'm not going to go through that. If you go to camera settings, this is where we can set what's going to happen when we take pictures. Format, if it's going to save the picture in JPEG, RAW, or both. For the drone, I usually use JPEG or RAW. I don't do both because it's going to take so much space. So I usually go maybe for RAW. I'm going to have the aspect ratio if you're going to be 4:3 or 16:9. I prefer to have 4:3 because if you have 16:9, the drone is just going to crop the 4:3 picture into 16:9 picture. So if you use the 4:3, you're going to be able to use the entire sensor and you can do the crop yourself. We can have the resolution 12 or 48 megapixels. We can have the anti-flicker setting, histogram. Then you can see on a histogram whatever is bright and dark in image. So let's take a look at that histogram a little bit more. If we go into settings here and we scroll to the histogram and we activate that one, then we're going to see that we get this little thing on the screen. So if I now go into the EV setting and I would like to have things darker, then we're going to shift that entire curve to the dark side. If you take that one to the other way, it's going to shift to the bright side and we can see that it's too much in the bright. So we would like to have that one kind of in the middle, so 0 is usually good. When you need to adjust these manually, for example, if we aim towards the sky, the drone will compensate for the sky. It's going to make the entire shot darker, but now we like to capture the trees. So what we need to do now is that we manually need to compensate for this. So we're getting more light, so the trees are getting perfectly exposed and the sky is going to be blown out because we don't really care about the sky here. It's a tree that we're going to focus on. And to close that histogram, we can just click, tap that little X. We can have peaking levels. If we take loadout, for example, now we can see everything that is in focus is red. If we change that one to normal, now it gets even brighter, and if we switch that one to high, it's going to be super red. And this is only showing up whenever you are in manual focus. If we switch to autofocus, that disappears because the camera is going to take care of that by itself. But if we switch to manual focus and then we go in front of the camera, let's back up. Now we can see that I'm not red, and that is just because I'm not in focus. So then we have to press and hold this one, and now we can adjust the focus until I am red. And there we can see that my contours are red, so now we know that I am in focus. Exposure warning, when you have that on, you're going to get stripes, zebra stripes all over the image whenever you have something that is overexposed, so you can identify that. Then you're going to get these zebras wherever the camera thinks it's overexposed. So again, if we aim towards the sky, we take the EV because we compensate to make things brighter, because we like to have good exposure for the trees. Now we can see that we get the zebras all over the sky because that is overexposed. That means that we are losing the details in the sky, so we can't bring that back into the editing, so we won't be able to see the clouds, for example. We have grid lines if you like to have that. If I just press that one, the dot, now we're getting this little dot in the middle of the screen, this little crosshair. If I also turn on that one, we're going to get that here on the screen. And if we even take this, then we're going to get all these ones, and that can help you to have a good composition of your shot if you would like to. This is not in the photo, in the video that you're actually capturing, it's just here on the screen, so it's going to help you. Because for example, if you would like to have a good framing of a person, you maybe would like to have the rule of 1/3. That means that here at one of these cross there, that's maybe where I would like to have things that are of interest. So let's turn off the other ones because I don't want to have those ones. And then I'm going to have only that. And then I can see if I should take a picture of myself. So now I am in one of those corners here for rule of 1/3. And if I now take a picture, it's going to be a pretty good compensation. Then we have white balance. Then we have the maximum video cache capacity. That one I usually set to auto. So the drone and remote themselves is going to determine how much can be stored in the memory of the remote. When we are here in the camera settings, the information you see here now, that is for, then we have to go back to the main screen to see what mode we are in. We are in video mode, then we're going to get the video settings on this screen. This is the video settings. And if I go back here and if I switch to photo mode instead, and then we go into the same setting, Now we suddenly get the photo settings here instead. So that's why you need to be aware of what settings you are in when you are supposed to change the settings. Because if you're not, you may be looking for the settings for the video and you can't find it. And that's just because you are in photo mode. Then let's go to transmission. Here we have live streaming platforms. I've never used that one. We have frequency. Here we can have it on dual bands, so the drone itself going to determine what bands it's going to communicate. This can vary depending on the region where you are, what kind of bands you have access to. And then the channel mode, this is just showing you how it's working. And then we have about, and this is where you can rename the drone. You can see what model it is. You can check for updates for the firmware aircraft. And you can check for updates for the FlySafe database. You can also see the serial number on your drone, etc. So that was to go through all the settings of the DJI Flight app, so you can get all the settings the way you need to have it to have a safe flight. Now let me share with you how I do when I'm going to get up flying with a drone, so you can just copy that for your first flight and then you're going to be safe. The first thing we're going to do, that is to focus on the remote. First, let's take the joysticks from the back and we're going to attach them where they're supposed to be. After that, we unfold the antennas and then we're going to turn on the remote. So how we do that, that is by pressing once and press and hold until we hear that chime. Now it's time to look at the drone. Let's put down the remote. Let's take the drone instead. The first thing I'm going to do, that is to remove any propeller holders that we have. And don't throw this one away or put it somewhere on the ground so you don't see it and can't find it, because you need this one when you're going to pack together your drone afterwards. Then let's take off these gimbal cover. You just lift that up, take it off. Now let's put these somewhere safe so I know where it is. Then let's unfold the propellers, 2 forward and 2 backwards. So now we're going to check the battery level, so just press once. We have 3 dots, that's going to be enough. I'm not going to turn it on in my hand because we want the home point to be recorded from where we would like to take off, so it comes back to that position. Now we need to find a suitable position to place the drone and take off from. It doesn't need to be all flat and nice, but it needs to be somewhere good. Here's good, and I'm going to check so the propeller doesn't touch the ground, so it's all good. One thing though, never take off from sand, because sand will get into the drone and destroy it. Now let's press once and press and hold. We're going to hear that chime. And now we can see that it said that the home point is updated. And now we just need to make sure that we're allowed to fly where we are. So check that first. I am allowed to fly here. So now we have 2 options to take off. But before we take off, we just would like to check how many satellites we have. It says strong GPS signal. 24, 25 satellites, so that is all good. So now after we've checked the GPS satellites, we have 2 options to take off. Either we can take both these controllers down to the middle, and we're going to just get this warning that it says check propeller installation, so let's do that. We're just going to check the propellers and they all look good. No screws are out, they all look fine. They're not going to be super attached, as I said. It's going to be a little bit loose like this, so this is perfect. Then we're going to say yes, check is complete, and now we can start the motors by doing like this. Now the propellers are starting, but the drone is not taking off. To take off, we need to push these one forward. And that is how easy you take off with your DJI Mini 4 Pro. And now it's just going to hover here. And to land, we can just take that one down. And now we have landed the drone. The second option, that is to use this button. Press that one once, then press and hold. And the drone is taking off the same way. Now remember, to get the precision landing to work, we need to get up to at least 7 meters. So let's do that first before we start moving the drone back and forth, because then it's not working. So now let's take a look here. We are at 1.2 meters, so let's fly up. But before we do that, let's switch to cinematic mode so the drone goes slow. Then fly up. Just look upwards so you don't have any trees above you or anything else that you're going to fly into. Now we are up to 8 meters, so we are above 7 meters, so now the precision landing should work. The next thing we need to do, that is to check our return to home altitude. So to do that, we're going to fly up. Then we're going to see where we have the highest trees. It looks like I'm getting up to the right elevation here now. Yep. So I would say that I should have return to home altitude to at least 30 meters. So let's go into the settings. And here we scroll down to the auto return to home altitude. You can have the return to home altitude to almost any altitude, but you need to have it above the obstacles. And if it's really windy, you would like to have it as low as possible so you don't get up into those strong winds. So let's have that at 30 meters. Then you scroll up, and I'm going to make sure that the obstacle avoidance action is set to bypass. So now we are ready for our first flight. Take this one forward and you are ascending, downwards, descending. If you take it to the right, spin like that, left, spinning like that. If you take this one forward, you're going to fly forward. If you take it backwards, you're going to fly backwards. Take it to the side, the drone is moving that side, and take it to the other side, you moving in that direction. And now we would like to return to home. So either we can fly back home, or we can press this button and then return to home. Here, that one you can press if you would like to land where we are, but it's not a good thing to land over that in that spinach. So let's take the return to home, press and hold. The drone is going to angle itself towards us. You can see where it's going to fly. It's going to find a good position where to land. Now it's looking down. Now you can see where it's supposed to land. That's not a good place to land. So let's see if it aborts this landing or if we have to abort with this button. No, let's stop that. It looked like the drone was about to land there, but I don't want to do that. For some reason it didn't go back to exact the same position. So now let's fly slowly in cinematic mode until we are where we would like to land, and then we can just take this one down. So good job, you have now completed the beginner's tutorial for the DJI Mini 4 Pro. The next thing I recommend that is to check the description box below for more relevant videos, and if you're just lazy you can just watch that video that YouTube recommended to watch. And if you really enjoyed this video, a super thanks is very welcome, because then I get paid a little bit for the job I'm doing as well. Anyhow, it was so great to have you here, and I'm so grateful to have you as my viewer and that you watched all the way to the end. Thank you so much, and good luck with your new drone, your DJI Mini 4 Pro. Bye.